Hi, and welcome to the Invitation to IEP Meeting module with Durham Public Schools. The invitation to the IEP meeting is an actual legal notice that's used to invite the parent, guardian, and/or student to all IEP team meetings. The notice must be provided 7 to 10 days before convening any IEP meeting. We have to at least make 3 attempts before the team can hold the meeting without the parents present, and keep in mind, we want parents at IEP meetings. They know their children best, and we want them to be able to meaningfully participate in every single IEP meeting. So those attempts should be varied and should be documented in ECAT's contacts for that student. It's important to schedule directly with parents as much as possible. It's totally fine to communicate with parents through phone calls, emails, when you see them in the drop-off pickup lines and before or after school, to talk about the scheduling of an IEP meeting. But that formal invitation, that written notification, must always go home 7 to 10 days prior to the meeting in most situations. It's also important to plan ahead. We take the annual review, which happens yearly, for example. We ask that that is scheduled and held 30 days before it's actually due, because if there's any complication with communicating, inviting the parent to the meeting and getting them to the table, it could take up to 3 different attempts before we can hold that meeting, and that could easily take up 30 days based on the 7 to 10 days notice requirement. Also keep in mind that attempts to provide the notice have to be varied. So we can send certified mail, we can email the invitation as an attachment, and we can also do home visits and deliver the document directly. The invitation contains all of the required legal components for notification per law. It indicates the purpose or purposes of the meeting. And remember, any IEP meeting can have multiple purposes, and we want to make sure we check all that may be pertinent. It also includes the time, location, and who will attend the meeting. We have to invite the student when he or she is age 14 and notify that a purpose is to develop a statement of needed transition services. It's also totally okay to invite the student before age 14 if it's deemed appropriate by the IEP team and with parental consent, including the parent in certain portions of IEP meetings when they're younger and the student has preparation and can come to the table and has had some instruction and practice to advocate for themselves, can be very, very powerful. We also must invite the student no later than the first IEP to be in effect when he or she turns age 16. And indicate the purpose of considering post-secondary goals and transition services. That's what we call the transition plan of the IEP. Start to get into more detail when the student turns age 16. Additionally, we identify any other agency that will be invited by us to send a representative. For example, that could include a representative from vocational rehabilitation. It's critical that we take steps to ensure one or both of the parents of the child are present at each IEP team meeting, or are afforded the opportunity to participate. So we have to notify the parents early enough to ensure that they have the opportunity to attend. That's that 7 to 10 day notice. We also have to schedule the meeting at a mutually agreed on time and place. So that's where that dialogue leading up to the scheduling comes into play, where we're actually talking to parents, emailing, picking up the phone, asking about what days and times work for them, along with what works for our calendars. Parents can participate by phone or video conferencing, especially nowadays in our COVID-19 situation where everything is online. Most of our IEP meetings will be held via those forums. We also have to arrange for interpreter for parents with deafness or whose native language is other than English. And there are specific processes in Durham Public Schools for making those request submissions. A signed invitation from the parent must be kept in the student's EC folder and included with the other documents from that associated IEP meeting. All right, let's do a quick review. So the first question, and then you can hit pause on your end in dialogue or just process by yourself if you're alone. Why is the invitation considered such an important legal document? The invitation is important because it contains information we're required legally to provide to the parent. Remember, it includes the date, time, and location of the meeting, the purpose or purposes of the meeting, and all of the participants and their roles. That's all required information. Next question. When must we start officially including the student in creating an invitation for the student, and why? We must start inviting the student beginning at age 14. And remember, no later than when the first IEP is to be in effect when this child turns 16. This is when we begin discussions and planning for transition services and post-secondary goals. The more comprehensive transition plan starts when the child turns 16. Review question 3. How many attempts must we make before holding an IEP meeting without a parent? At least 3 attempts to invite the parent to a meeting are required. Attempts must be for 3 rescheduled meetings, not for the same meeting on the same day. Remember, a different invitation every single time would have a different date and time, 7 to 10 days notice for each meeting. Review 4. Does sending an email to the parent without the invitation constitute official notice? And what about if the parent replies to the email and confirms they will attend? Doesn't that suffice? No. An email is a way to check in and ask or notify the parent of an upcoming meeting informally, but the email itself does not constitute the legal notice, even if the parent replies. The official notice is always and only the invitation to the conference. Review question 5. What are different ways we can provide the invitation to the parent? Lots of different ways to provide the invitation. We can definitely hand deliver it if we have face-to-face contact and communication with the parent. If they're coming in for before or after school drop-off pickup, we can put it in the U.S. postal mail or send certified or registered mail. If the parent has an email address and is okay receiving it that way, we can also send it as an attachment. The last option here, pictorially suggested, is by carrier pigeon, and we do not suggest that due to lack of reliability on the part of the bird. No offense to birds. Please choose methods that are most likely to get that invitation in hand to the parent. And remember too, sometimes your social worker at your school and there are other personnel who will make home visits to deliver notifications to support you in this endeavor. Thank you. That concludes the invitation to the IEP meeting.